Good day everyone, my name is Emma Osborn and today I'm going to speak a little bit about what the new church means to me. I spent a lot of time actually thinking about why I feel closer to the new church today than I did maybe 10 years ago. And what's strange about that is I actually used to live a lot closer. I was closer to the physical church building, I was closer to the community, and I was closer to obviously my family that lived there too. Yet in many ways today I feel a lot closer to the new church than I ever have before. And I think that realization suddenly has made me look back on my journey, and I think it can be summed up in really 3 stages, which is growing up in the new church, growing away from it, and growing closer again. I grew up in Kynan, surrounded by a lot of the new church community. My grandparents were involved, my mom went to Kynan, and my mom grew up in the church, so many of my closest friends were also part of it. I felt like I had 50 aunties and uncles, and every house on Glen felt like a different version of my own. There was always somebody who knew more about your life than maybe you did, and looking back, I don't think I really understood anything about theology. I just understood the sense of belonging. I understood what it felt like to be surrounded by people that genuinely care about you and care about one another. When my brother was in hospital, people simply showed up. Meals arrived, support appeared without being asked for, and our family was carried through a very difficult time by the people around us, and as was the same for others. As I grew older, however, my world became much bigger, and I met different people from different backgrounds with a lot of different understanding of life, different ways of understanding life. But while my understanding of life matured, my understanding of faith largely stayed the same. And it was during that sort of time during my second year of university, that my grandfather died. And his death affected me very deeply. For the first time, I wasn't really thinking about heaven as a comforting childhood idea. I was trying to understand death as an adult. The faith that had carried me through childhood was no longer sufficient to answer these questions that I was asking. There was definitely like a disconnect between the simple picture of heaven that I'd grown up learning at Kynan and through the church, and sort of the dark reality of losing somebody that I really loved. And for the first time, I really questioned whether I believed any of it. At that time, I thought questioning these things was a sign that I was losing my faith or my connection to God or my religion. And as the years passed, I moved away from home and became more distant from the church. Returning even sometimes felt a bit uncomfortable. I loved the community and obviously my family, but I wasn't sure what I believed in anymore. And more recently, after losing another close friend, I found myself really returning to many of the same questions. But at this time, instead of avoiding them, I started looking for answers, for deeper answers. And I found myself drawn back to the teachings and the inner values of the new church. Not because I missed home or because I felt guilty, but because they spoke to me directly. They spoke directly to the questions that I've always wrestled with. And of course, these are the same questions that the new church has offered as answers through their very foundation and its teaching, through the writings and core values. Although at this stage, I know that I'm just beginning to sort of scratch the surface when it comes to the writings. But I have friends from many different faiths and different backgrounds, and the new church teaching that all people live with genuine goodness, are welcomed into heaven, deeply resonates with me. Not because it only makes sense, but because it really reflects the kind of God that I believe in. And as I prepare for marriage, I find myself thinking a lot differently about the teaching that love and truth lasts for eternity. What once sounded like an abstract idea now feels deeply personal. And perhaps most importantly, I have come to appreciate that faith is not something that you simply believe, it's obviously something that you live. Before my grandfather passed away, he was desperate to have a conversation with some of his older grandchildren. Unfortunately, we never were able to have that conversation with him, but we knew what he wanted to talk about. He wanted to understand what young people needed from religion, and what specifically they needed from the new church to reignite our faith and our belief again. And at the time, I don't think I could have given him an answer, but today I think I can. I don't think you need a religion that stays exactly the same while you grow. I think you need one that can grow with you, that can withstand these questions and can face grief. One that can engage in complexities, and one that can still offer hope and, in essence, love for all. In many ways, these teachings were taught to me for a very long time before I could even understand them. I saw them in the people around me growing up, and I saw them in the support. I saw them in the values that shaped our community that I was raised in, the external lived community of the church. And while these experiences first connected me to the new church, I find myself now for the first time really exploring what lies internally beneath them. The teachings themselves, the ideas, the principles, the truths that gave rise to the church and the community. And the questions that once pushed me away are the same ones that now have brought me back to the church and to God. And maybe that's what this journey is all about. It's not about growing away from or closer to the church and my faith, but rather growing into it. Thank you very much.